Good afternoon, everyone. Allison Skyberg here, Consolidated Planning Group. We are happy to be back with you today. If you're joining us for the first time, welcome. We're glad you're here. And if you've been attending our webinars for years, we are certainly glad that you are back with us today. Today, we are with Kara Huss and with the Williams School. She's going to talk to us a little bit about the Williams School. And then we're going to dive into what is a letter of intent and why do you need one. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. First, I always like to start with a little housekeeping items. We are in webinar mode today, which means that we can't see you or hear you, but we do know you're here and we're glad that you're here with us today. We do invite you to put your questions in the chat box as we're going through the presentation today. If you have a question, just put it in the chat box. I did get some write-in questions that people emailed ahead of time or people submitted ahead of time, so we will be going through those questions as well today. So having said that, I'm going to ask Kara to talk to us a little bit about the Williams School and what they are about. Thank you, Kara, for being back with us again today.
Yes, thank you, Allison, and thank you to Consolidated Planning Group for partnering, allowing us to partner with them to bring this great information to our community and to those around us. So as Allison mentioned, my name is Kara Huss. I'm the Executive Director at Williams School. At Williams School, our mission is to provide a unique education for unique individuals. We currently serve individuals from ages 2 to 22, many who are on the autism spectrum or have learning disabilities or have otherwise not been able to find a school setting where they can really be successful and thrive. Our vision is that we're a community that supports neurodiverse individuals in their journey toward connectedness and community and independence and confidence.
Where are you located at, Kara?
We are in Northwest Austin, so at 183 in Duval, for those who are local to the Austin area, but Northwest Austin.
Okay, and do you offer any residential options or anything like that, or it's just basically a normal school day?
It's a normal school day, so we offer school in combination with therapeutic services, but daytime only. So we run a traditional school time schedule. Oh, there's the hours there. Monday through Thursday, 8:15 to 3:15, Friday, 8:15 to 12:15, traditional school year calendar, followed by a 7-week summer camp. So yes, ages 2 to 22. And we believe given the right supports, all children can thrive. So who do we serve? As I mentioned, students with autism, emotional disturbance, ADHD, Down syndrome. Ultimately, we see students who are struggling with traditional classroom settings, but maybe are unable to be accepted into the other private schools in the area, or who have been in ABA centers or one-to-one settings or residential settings, and they need a step between us and a more traditional school. Between those settings and a traditional school, or who need a therapeutic approach or behavioral supports that may exceed those given in a more traditional setting, or who need more one-to-one individualized education in the classroom. So again, I think you're good. I think we've talked about most of these things. The ages, we have 9 classrooms that we split students into, 6 to 8 students per classroom. And we group those students based on their learning styles, their ages, their academic content, and where their social and communication skills are. And then, as I mentioned, that collaborative approach. So we have our school team, we have an ABA team, speech team, occupational therapy team, all on site. Who are all working together to meet the needs of the students and take a whole child approach to their learning throughout the day. A few of these things maybe I've mentioned, I'll mention them again. So accepting of all behavioral support needs. So we see students with who need one-to-one or high levels of behavioral, students who don't need as much behavioral support, but need more one-to-one communication support and academic support, and social supports of all levels. Individualized curriculum. So we do focus on reading, writing, and math, and their developmental needs, and making sure that they're set up for whatever their next transition may be when they leave us, whether that's back to a traditional school setting or back to a residential or day treatment center, or whatever that may be. And then again, that social emotional focus. Again, I mentioned our team. We've got teachers, teaching assistants, RBTs, TAs, And then the clinic team made up of registered behavior technicians, BCBAs, SLPs, and occupational therapists, as well as our administrative team who are all working to meet the needs of our students throughout the day. Won't read all of this. This is our enrollment process. If you visit our website, www.williams-school.org, there is a tab for enrollment that will walk you through this process of how to attend a tour, how to get an application, and what the steps are following that application. And you can see those tours on our calendar and sign up for those there. All right. And our therapy dog, Granita, who's a trained facility dog through Canine Companions, and she is on site with us all day, every day as well. And there is our general email, the info@williamsschool.org, or if you have specific questions, feel free to put those in the chat as well. But thank you all for attending. Looking forward to hear what Allison has to share with us today.
Thanks for sharing your school with us. I feel like your school is a great school for the in-betweeners. There's a lot of kids that learn differently that might be ADHD or maybe high functioning autism or other things like that. And they don't always fit the bill for like, a contained classroom, but they can't always keep up in the traditional setting. So I feel like your school is a really good place for those in between kids. So that's exciting. And I'm glad that you guys are doing what you do. That is an underserved segment. The in-betweeners, I think, it's like that we have schools for one extreme or the other, the academically gifted, or one, like I said, one extreme or the other, but the in-between is where we struggle the most for sure. So thank you, Kara, for that. So Kara's going to be monitoring the chat box today for questions. She's going to pop her video back on if we have a question, and like I said, I have some write-in questions that we had today. So just getting started, for those of you that are joining for the first time, Consolidated Planning Group is a holistic special needs financial planning firm. We're nationally certified as Social Security advisors, members of the Special Needs Planning Academy, certified special needs planners. What we do is we work with families just like yours or the families that you serve, and help them plan for the future of a loved one with a disability. And basically, we go through things of how and when to turn on public benefits, who's going to care for the child when they're gone, how much money do we need to fund the special needs trust. So we help people set up specialized plans specifically for their loved one. These plans include protection plans, lifetime care plan. We do a lot of transition planning. We help establish ABLE accounts, and we do a lot of advocacy. A lot of the advocacy is done by our webinars and the educational webinars that we do, and also in-person events. So we always like to mention this, if you've attended once, you've heard this 100 times with us, is that fewer than 0.1% of all financial advisors in the US focus on special needs planning. So there's a lot of financial advisors in the US, but very few of them, about 125 to 150 total in the entire US, have any background in special needs. And this is important when it comes to planning for your loved one with a disability. Your situation is specialized, and it is important to work with a specialist. And the reason this is important is we want to have money in the right buckets. We want to preserve eligibility for state and federally funded programs. We don't want to accidentally mess up accessibility to some of these programs. So, what we would say to that, and this is going to come to your legal documents as well as financial planning, which is two separate things. I always say that the attorneys, they're the paper and we're the money. The legal documents, they're super important. We're talking about wills, special needs trust, guardianship, legal documents. Those are super important, and you want to work with a specific attorney that's nuanced with special needs with that. And so whether you work, with us when it comes to financial planning or someone else, we also think when it comes to financial planning that it's really, really important to work with a financial specialist that's nuanced in special needs as well. So when it comes to special needs planning, a lot of times families come to us and they're worried about who's going to care for your child when you're gone. So developing a future care plan now will answer these questions. Actually, that was one of the questions today. Just know that we have no one who is willing or able to assume that role as far as being a caregiver in the future. And we're in a real dilemma. So first, what I would like to say is that you're not alone in that. There are other families that are in that same situation, that there's no one there, there's either no one, period, or there's no one capable or that has capacity to provide the caregiving services that your loved one needs. But there are facilities across the US, across Texas, all states, and some of them would be willing to take on guardianship of your loved one in the future. So those are questions that you can ask. But we help people look at that, of what happens when I'm no longer here. Where do we go from here? So one of the things that we think about when it comes to planning, we think about considering post-high school educational options, vocational options, transition programs, full care, residential care, partial residential care. Thinking about some of these things before you need it is going to be important, because some of these places have really long waiting lists. So you're going to want to get yourself on the waiting list. It gives you the opportunity to say yes when you want to, as opposed to needing to say yes and you're nowhere close to, as far as a waiting list is concerned. So just because you put yourself on a waiting list for some of these programs doesn't mean you have to accept the slot when it comes up, but it gives you freedom of choice to do so if you need to. And so the other thing that we talk about when it comes to planning for a loved one with a disability, we want you to make careful considerations before naming siblings as the future caregiver. Now, oftentimes we may see a sibling as the successor trustee of the trust that's going to pay for care for the individual with a disability. They might be the successor trustee, but they're not necessarily the successor caregiver. We have a handful of families that the siblings are going to be the successor caregiver. Unique situations where the siblings truly want to do that. Other unique situations where the siblings, there may be a 15 or a 20-year age difference where the sibling is 15 or 20 years older than the sibling. But the reason we say to make careful considerations before naming siblings as the future caregiver, this is usually, it's usually a decision of the last resort, or a lack of planning is usually what this ends up being. And the reason we want you to consider this is your other children have hopes and dreams. Maybe they want to go to college, maybe they want to get married, maybe they want to have a house, maybe they want to have a family. Life happens, and life is going to happen in their lives as well. And being saddled up with a sibling with a disability it may cause issues for them for higher education. It might cause marital issues, or any other number of financial issues and things like that. So we just like to think clearly, think through. We want the relationship with the sibling to be a loving, kind relationship, not an obligatory relationship. And so that's the key for that. So today, what we're talking about today is the letter of intent, and why this is important. So, we have talked about wills and special needs trust and guardianship and legal documents, but a letter of intent kind of goes alongside these documents. It's an important part of planning for the future of your child with special needs. It's going to be this letter of intent. And this letter of intent is a form fillable document. Ours is 20 pages. It's not a legal document, but it's really going to ensure that your trustee or the future caregiver of your loved one knows your child's functional abilities, routines, interests, particular likes, and dislikes. It's important. So I always talk about, as parents, we have forgotten more than anybody will ever know as it relates to caring for our loved one with a disability. We do this on autopilot. You could do it with your eyes closed. You've been doing it for a long time. But somebody else isn't you. And sometimes even your spouse isn't you. If the spouse was working outside of the home and you were providing the caregiving services, we have found that sometimes even spouses don't know all of the information that would be important. So the importance of the letter of intent is to close the gap on the understanding of what the person's needs are. It's going to be a difficult time. If your loved one has lost you, a parent, or the primary caregiver, maybe your grandparent or another family member, it's a big deal. It's emotionally, it is a big deal. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to close the gap on any of the of the learning curve of the new caregiver, so that way that your loved one's needs are being met. Okay, so one of the questions that comes up is, do I even really need a letter of intent if I already have a last will and testament or a revocable trust, special needs trust, guardianship, power of attorney, healthcare power of attorney? Do I really need this? And I think that the answer is yes. So when we get into the weeds of the letter of intent and what is in the letter of intent, the information that is contained in the letter of intent is not contained in your will or your special needs trust. And that's why it goes alongside these documents beautifully. We want to ensure that your child's financial future is only, one facet of the comprehensive plan, but it's the care, it's the caregiving that we need for these kids. It's the daily routine. This is what makes the child thrive. This is what makes the child melt down. Like, we need these things. Okay. So a letter of intent as a parent is really going to communicate your knowledge, including specific hopes and desires for your child's future and well-being. So it may identify diagnoses, it's 20 pages, so it's pretty intense. Of the information that's going in there. It's the child's name and their date of birth, and it's their diagnoses, what they were diagnosed with and when, health history, name, address, and phone numbers of treating physicians, names of medications, the milligrams, the frequencies, likes, dislikes, allergies, religious preferences, legal documents that you may already have in place. A lot of it is very factual, and again, it's form fillable, but then there's a lot of free space in the back for a parent to really write what their heart is. What you don't see in all of this listing of stuff is what my heart is. What my heart is for little Johnny is XYZ. What you really, really need to know if you were stepping into the caregiver role is this. What is super important to me that never happens is this. These are the things that, you just assume that people know. We're just so busy living our life with our loved one that we don't really think about these things or conveying these things. It's just kind of suggested or understood. So what should be in your letter of intent? Family information, medical history and care, any information about government benefits on what they might be getting, SSI, SSDI, Medicaid, Medicare, living arrangements and accommodations, educational history, employment history, alongside if they're involved with VR, vocational rehab, or any other work programs getting them to work, personality and habits, recreation and fitness, spiritual values, legal guardians, special needs trust, if that's in place, power of attorney, healthcare power of attorney, where they can find important documents such as insurance policies, bank accounts, etc. Who is your attorney? Who is your accountant? Who is your special needs financial advisor? That kind of thing. And have you kind of already made final arrangements for said loved one? Some people have done that, some people have not. And we say consider inviting your child to help prepare this information. So I understand that there are kids out there that A, don't have capacity, B, don't speak, or they don't communicate, and that would be difficult, and that's not possible, and that's okay. But somebody said nothing about them without them. So nothing about them without them. So at any point that there is an ability to keep your loved one in the loop of what's going on with this letter of intent. And this is also, I think like the person-centered planning and things like that you may have heard of in the past. I think it's important to plug them in wherever you can. Okay, so here is an example. Hannah likes to dress herself, but needs a little help picking out the right outfit. She sometimes needs help with buttons and zippers and deciding what is weather appropriate. She really enjoys wearing clothes that are soft, nothing that will be scratchy on her skin. She also prefers colorful clothing and pants instead of skirts. She likes to walk to school with her friend Lena and Scotty, and with me following close behind. In the mornings and before bed, Hannah can brush her own teeth, but won't do it unless she's told. When she is told to go upstairs and get ready for bed, she won't remember what she needs to do So step-by-step instructions are better. Go brush your teeth and get your pajamas on and go to bed. So this is an example. So these are things that as parents, we just do. We just roll with. This is our everyday life. But other people might not know this. And again, when we have a loved one, no matter their age, if they're a child or if they're an adult, and they're dealing with emotions of losing their loved one, getting the little small things right helps the transition for your family member be a little bit smoother along the way. So as a gift to you today, we will be providing a letter of intent workbook. This is our form fillable workbook that I had mentioned to you. So everybody is going to get a copy of today's slides, a link to the recording, and they're going to get a form fillable PDF of the letter of intent workbook. So one of the things that I tell people is if you've never done a letter of intent, try not to do this in one setting. It is 20 pages. It's a lot, and it can be emotional. Just like people, if they're applying for guardianship, it can be emotional because you're taking the rights away of a loved one. You're reviewing what they can't do. It's in your face of the hopes and dreams that you had that didn't work out when it comes to guardianship. And sometimes when you're writing all of this stuff down, for the letter of intent, there can be some emotions that go along with that as well. So I say don't do this in one setting. Break it up over, several settings, sittings where you sit down and you work on it for a little while and then you come back to it. We suggest that the letter of intent get updated once or twice a year. We have some families that we work with and their kids' diagnosis is pretty static. It stays the same. And then we have other families that we work with and their child's diagnosis or adult child's diagnosis is pretty fluid and it's changing rapidly. So you also are going to want to let somebody know where this is. There's a lot of personal information on here, so some people don't want to share that right away, but they may share of, oh, by the way, if something happens to me, you'll find a copy of our letter of intent with our legal documents in the front folder of our file cabinet or wherever it is that you keep it. Maybe it's on a flash drive. Maybe it's in your safety deposit box. Most people don't have safety deposit boxes anymore, but some people still do. So letting somebody know where they can find this information is going to be important. And again, the fact that it's form fillable, you can update it as things change, as your view changes, as you think about things, and as your child grows and matures, whatever age that they are. Okay. So when it comes to planning for special needs, we really do think it's important to take the steps. I always talk to people and I say, tell me about the vision of how you hope things will look for yourself. I never have to tell people, ask people, to think about how the vision for their child will look, because that's all we ever think about. But oftentimes, as caregivers of a loved one, we put our own thoughts and preferences on the back burner for everybody else that we're serving, whether it's a parent, you're a spouse or a caregiver, whatever it is. We tend to put ourselves on the back burner. So when it comes to planning for special needs, it's important to put your needs on the front and center, because I call this the marathon, not the sprints. When we have a loved one who's going to have care needs for the rest of their life, it's the marathon, it's not the sprint. They don't sail off into the sunset and get married and go to college, or go to college and get married and sail off. They may be with us for the rest of our life as we know it. And so our semblance of retirement may look different to that of a family that has only neurotypical kids. So 53% of caregivers said that their own health had worsened due to caregiving, and that their declined health affected their ability to provide care. 55% of caregivers are unaware of how to establish a lifetime financial plan for their special needs dependent. So these numbers are important numbers. 53%, more than half of special needs parents, said that their own health worsened. So having balance in our life as it relates to providing the caregiving services, and a balance of some semblance of what we hoped our retirement would be, is going to be important for you to maintain your ability to provide the caregiving services as long as you had planned to. So a couple of things, what I have here, and we have people that listen from all over, all across the United States. Consolidated Planning Group is domiciled in Texas, but we do serve all across the United States. We have people that attend our webinar. We have people that listen to our webinars later on podcast, RSS, or Spotify. So if you're listening to us through one of those other services or a podcast and you would like a copy of today's slides, we are always happy to provide that to you. And you can reach out to us at contact@cpgcares.net and ask for a copy of the slides, and we will send it to you. We will also be happy to send you a copy of the letter of intent that we're sharing with all of our participants today. So what I have on the screen now is things to keep on your radar when it comes to planning for special needs. I think as a parent, sometimes we feel overwhelmed of all of the things that we need to do when it comes to planning. We have webinars on all of these topics. The Consolidated Planning Group YouTube channel is a YouTube channel that you can subscribe to for free. There are over 500 webinars on planning for special needs. If you can think of it, it is out there. I myself am a parent to multiple kids, grown kids with disabilities, and this is what I do for a living. But I found it very frustrating, maddening as a matter of fact, of why is everything we do as a parent for these kids when it comes to planning, why is everything so hard? So that YouTube channel was really born out of my own frustration and my heart to empower other parents that are also tired, sick and tired of everything being so hard, to empower parents to give you some of the tools and resources that you need to be successful, and again, to empower you to feel like, hey, you can do this, you do have this, and not feel so overwhelmed by all the things that we have to do. So we have webinars, upcoming webinars, past webinars on how to develop a special needs care plan, future care cost estimates, how much money do we need to fund a special needs trust, small, medium, and large, Medicaid waivers and interest list. All states have Medicaid waivers. Medicaid waivers are designed to waive off some of the cost of care for caring for an individual, to keep them in home and community-based services and out of being institutionalized. So when I say all states have Medicaid waivers, that's absolutely true. In Texas, our waiting list is quite long, 17 to 20 years. So if you're not on the Medicaid waiver interest list, you need to get on that, and we can help you and show you how and when and where to get on that. We've done complete webinars on Medicaid waivers, so you'll want to check that out. Other states, not all states, have a waiting list for waivers. There's a lot of states that don't have a waiting list. So if you're attending or listening in from out of state, check with your state to see if there's a waiting list for waivers. Again, waivers waive off some of the cost of care for caring for an individual to keep them in home and community-based services. They may pay for various therapies. They might pay for attendance services or caregiver services. They may pay a parent to be a caregiver. They might pay for respite services or various summer camps and things like that. So it's totally worth it to check it out. SSI, SSDI, understanding the differences and knowing when to apply. ABLE accounts. An ABLE account is a place that we can have money outside of the $2,000 limit for Medicaid purposes that won't be counted against them for SSI and Medicaid purposes. Beneficiary designations are a big deal. A lot of times people have their beneficiaries set up incorrectly, and they have specifically named their special needs loved one as a beneficiary on anything, and that's a bad idea. We want to leave it to the special needs trust for the benefit of said individual that has the disability, so that way it'll be in a trust as opposed to the individual outright. And in a special needs trust, it will not be counted against them for Medicaid and SSI purposes. We suggest that you start touring residential living communities. Waiting lists can be long. As parents, we're not going to live forever. We're not always going to be physically able to provide the caregiving services that we once did. So looking at residential, partial residential, and looking at housing is important. And one of the things I think a lot of families struggle with is they think that they're sticking their loved ones somewhere. Well, when you start touring those, what I'll do is I'm just going to encourage you to start touring some of these places, because most of these places are awesome. And the benefit of touring these places is you can see it and you can feel it, and you're going to know as a parent if this is going to be a good fit for your loved one or not. And you can also see the other residents and that they're happy. We have families that have kids in residential living situations all across the country, definitely in Texas, but also all across the country. And what we have found is that their loved ones are happy. They have some autonomy from mom and dad. Mom and dad have some autonomy from said child. And they also, they also have a purpose. They have friends, they have community. A lot of them have jobs within the community. So all of those things are good. So a lot of our families, they'll bring their loved one home, like for a weekend or for a holiday, and the kid wants to know, when do I get to go back? Or if they come to visit, the parents come to visit, they'll like, when are you leaving? Like, I think it sometimes hurts the parents' feelings, but that's a good sign that the kid is loving their life and they're loving where they are at. So consider guardianship and alternatives to guardianship: power of attorney, healthcare power of attorney, supported decision-making agreement. And we can start that guardianship process 6 months prior to the child turning 18. So one of the questions that we had today was how to draft a power of attorney that would replicate guardianship. Powers of attorney do not replicate guardianship. A power of attorney and a supported decision-making agreement is for a person that has capacity to understand what they're signing. So in most states, when it comes to guardianship, what the rules are is the least restrictive, most appropriate. Least restrictive, most appropriate for the ward is what most of them would say. And so, but sometimes parents will just have their kids sign a power of attorney because your kid will sign whatever you put in front of them. But if your kid has an intellectual disability and doesn't have the capacity to understand what they're signing, be careful with that, because we've seen those not accepted at a hospital or in a hospital setting because they said that the kid never had capacity. You don't have to know what you need prior to going to see an attorney. The attorney's job is to talk to you, to talk to your loved one, and to help guide you to the least restrictive, most appropriate for the person. Okay, so there is alternatives to guardianship, such as partial guardianship. And so you're going to want to look at those. Okay, so let me see. So the power of attorney that would replicate guardianship, a power of attorney that is a standing power of attorney that does not have to have incapacitation for it to be active, meaning you have the right to call on their behalf or to act on their behalf at all times. They don't have to be incapacitated. That would be the one that is closest to guardianship, but a power of attorney and guardianship are definitely not the same thing. Okay. One person says, and then we're going to come to Kara because Kara's got several questions in the chat box as well. One person says, how can I get Social Security benefits? They were denied because he has never worked. That is a misnomer. Okay, so when a person is denied because they never worked, that is correct. You get that letter and you feel overwhelmed because your loved one is truly disabled, and they said, well, denied, categorically denied because they never worked. What that letter doesn't tell you is that when you applied, you were applying for SSI and SSDI, and you got the denial letter for SSDI, and that is accurate. But that letter doesn't tell you that they're still processing the SSI application, which is a supplemental security application. So in Texas, and I am speaking for Texas at this point, SSI applications are taking more than a year to get approved. That is not true in other states. That is special just for Texas. So it may be a while. If you just got the denial, you recently applied and you got the denial for SSDI, they're still working on that SSI application. Can you explain indefinite child support and what steps to take to still qualify for benefits? In a lot of states, when we have a loved one with a disability, child support in divorce situation continues post age 18 for an indefinite period of time. Sometimes it's a specific period of time. It is really, really important to have that child support redirected to a first party special needs trust, so it will not be counted against them for SSI purposes. So indefinite child support, what steps to take to still qualify for benefits? You'll need a first party special needs trust. That's one attorney, an estate planning attorney would do that. You're also going to need a child support attorney because the child support attorney is going to get a court order from the judge redirecting the child support to a special needs trust. You can't just do that on your own. You do need a court order. Okay. Does the letter of intent have to be notarized for it to be a legal document? I don't think it's necessary for it to be notarized, but you can certainly get it notarized. I mean, I think the point of the letter of intent is speaking your truth and speaking your heart of what I want you to really know about XYZ child is this. And what is important to me from the grave, what is important to me for the care for this child is this. So it doesn't necessarily have to be notarized. If you have a notary that's handy, you can certainly do that. Do you offer long-term care insurance for parents? We do. That is something that we actually have a hybrid policy when it comes to planning for special needs. I am a fan of life insurance funding a special needs trust, and we have several life insurance contracts that have long-term care built into it, where you can use 50% of the death benefit while you're alive for long-term care. So I like to say that it's kind of two birds, one stone. It's like you have a hybrid policy of life insurance and long-term care, but reach out to us and we can certainly help you with that. Somebody says, thanks CPG for always having relevant information for parents. That is my heart. Like I said, as my kids were transitioning into adulthood, some days I felt like I was beating my head against the wall. Like, why is this so hard? And so again, that was how those webinars were born in the Consolidated Planning Group YouTube channel. We partner with all kinds of professionals all across the state, all across the United States, attorneys, other professionals from the Social Security Administration, you name it, we've done it. So we hope that that will be helpful to you. Can you take food gifts out of a special needs trust? So that's interesting because basically it used to be until October of 2024, if you paid for food or shelter out of a special needs trust, there would be a 1/3 reduction to SSI, supplemental security income. I'm not speaking of Social Security disability. If you took money out of a special needs trust to pay for food or shelter, there was a 1/3 reduction to SSI. Well, in October of last year, in 2024, the Social Security Administration eliminated food. It turns out they decided we all should eat, our loved ones should eat. So there is no reduction for taking money out of a special needs trust to pay for food. There is still a reduction to pay for shelter out of a special needs trust, but not for food. Food was eliminated. So that is a great question. Now, one way that you can pay for shelter and not have a 1/3 reduction to SSI is paying for it through the ABLE account. You can pay for food and shelter through the ABLE account without a 1/3 reduction to SSI. Can you refer us to an attorney that is knowledgeable in special needs and special needs trusts? I absolutely can and would be happy to do that. In fact, I am a fan of only working with specialists that are nuanced in special needs. Again, our situation is specialized. It's important to see a specialist, and I liken it to the same. If you had a heart problem, you're not going to go to your primary care physician, nor are you going to go to a podiatrist. You're going to go to a cardiologist. And that's the same thing when it comes to planning for special needs. So again, whether you work with Consolidated Planning Group or you work with another firm that is nuanced in special needs on the financial side, same thing with an attorney. There are a lot of attorneys out there. You may even have a neighbor that says they'll do things for you for free because they like you, but they're not nuanced in special needs. You really just need a specialist. There's some things that you shouldn't skimp on, and these are some of those things. Okay. All right, Kara, that was a lot of questions, but now I want to come to your questions.
All right, I think I just have two on here. I just want to verify everyone will receive the slides and the link following the presentation in the way that they registered for the presentation today. Is that correct?
That's right. They're going to get a copy of the slides, a link to the recording, and they're also going to get a PDF of the form fillable letter of intent. So everybody that's registered, and again, anybody who's listening to us on the podcast, or Spotify or anything like that, if you'd like a copy of our slides or a copy of the letter of intent, just email us at contact@cpgcares.net. That's contact@cpgcares.net, and we'll be happy to send that to you.
Okay. Another question. Any thoughts on some of the online versions which store information similar to a letter of intent?
No, I've just used the form fillable one. I'm not really a fan of handwriting one. So there may be some of the online versions. To me, it's a private document, and the kind of some of the cloud stuff or some of the other stuff. I just be careful with that kind of stuff. I'm not necessarily for or against. I am for a form fillable document because it's a lot of information that goes into that.
Okay.
And again, I just want to stress the importance of letting somebody know that you did this and letting them know where it is, or providing them a copy. It's your personal preference on how and when they get this information. But if you spend all this time doing this and never let anybody know, they don't even know that it exists. So I think making things easier for people, like, my family and I, we have a document that we bat around and that we update yearly, and it has everything. It has every account that we have, the login for the account. What is it? Is it who you have your utilities with, who the HR director is, like everything that you have, health insurance, homeowners insurance, life insurance, disability, long-term care, kind of having those things in place to where somebody's not ripping your house apart, looking under the beds and in the file cabinet and the floorboard of your car to piece together the information that they need. They're going to have their hands full anyway. So the better that you can be prepared and kind of looking at all this stuff. It's more than just having a will and a special needs trust or guardianship in place. Taking time to have all of that accounts in order, and how do I contact this company? What is the policy number? What is the login? That kind of stuff is all important. Kara, do we have any additional questions?
Yes, I think this may be a verification for you versus a question, but it says the SNT can deposit money from the SNT to the ABLE account, and then the ABLE account can be used for shelter?
Correct. That is correct. You can put money into an ABLE account from the special needs trust, and vice versa. But yes, if you move money from the special needs trust to the ABLE account, you can pay for shelter out of the ABLE account. And again, food was eliminated, so they don't care about food anymore. They cared about that forever, but they got rid of that in October. So food out of a special needs trust is fine. Food out of an ABLE account is fine. You can pay rent. Sometimes I hear people on some of these talks, they'll say that you cannot pay rent out of a special needs trust, and that is simply not true. You absolutely can pay rent out of a special needs trust. However, if the individual is getting SSI, supplemental security income, and you pay rent out of the special needs trust, there would be a 1/3 reduction to SSI. So there's a difference between can't or you can, but there is a negative effect to doing that. Once they switch over to SSDI, they're no longer on SSI. It doesn't really matter. You can pay for shelter out of that special needs trust. Okay, any other questions?
No, I think that's all. And there were a few specific to the school that I answered directly, but if anybody has any of those questions that didn't get answered, otherwise I think that's all of them in the chat.
Perfectly said. Thank you so much, Kara. We do work on a collaborative team here at CPG. Again, nationally certified Social Security advisors, chartered special needs consultant. And we are the Social Security advisors. That part of it is a big piece. We have the only software out there that tells us exactly when and how to pull the trigger on your Social Security to maximize benefits for yourself, and if you're married, your spouse, as well as your disabled adult child. And some families have more than one child. It tells us exactly when, down to the month and year of when you should pull the trigger on your benefits to maximize the benefits for everyone. So we help people with that. So we're happy to chat with you. We always offer free personalized consultations. Whether you've done a little planning, a lot of planning, or you just want a second set of eyes or a second opinion of what you already have in place, people come to us for a lot of different reasons. But what I say, no matter where you are in the planning process, don't beat yourself up. Some people say, I would be embarrassed for you to see, what we have not done yet. Sometimes our life is hard. That's just all there is to it. So don't beat yourself up. You're here today. It's about moving forward. Maybe you're very organized and you've got all kinds of stuff in place. You've been planning all along. All you've done is plan, and you feel like you got it all sewed up, but you haven't worked with somebody that is nuanced and special needs. We can help you that way as well. So this QR code will take you to our calendar where you can schedule your free personalized consultation with us, and we'll talk to you further and take a deeper dive with you. Kara, do we have anything else for today?
One more question just came through. What's the difference between SSDI and childhood disability benefits?
SSDI, childhood disability benefits, Social Security, it's kind of all of the same. So childhood disability benefits is under a parent's record. So the kid didn't have to work if a parent is getting Social Security or Social Security disability. Our kids who had a disability that started prior to age 22 could be covered for childhood disability benefits under a parent's record, which is also called sometimes Social Security. It is also called sometimes Social Security disability. Now, having said that, we have a lot of families that their disabled adult child whose disability started prior to age 22 may also work some. And so that individual is also paying into the Social Security system. So about once a year, I'll see somebody that is getting SSDI under their own record. So the kid is getting SSDI under their own record. They might be getting childhood disability benefits under a parent's record. They might be getting two. And every once in a blue moon, I'll see somebody that's getting three. They're getting a portion of SSDI under their own record, a portion of CDB under a parent's record, and getting some SSI. So in general, you're going to get whatever's the highest. But if none of them are the highest, then you'll get a piece of each one. So some families have it that way. So we have entire webinars. That is like a whole hour-long webinar when we start talking about Social Security disability. SSI, so there's SSI, SSDI, then we have retirement survivors disability income. We have all these acronyms, RSDI, that we start throwing around, and it starts really getting confusing to people, but we've done a lot of webinars on this topic. We've done a lot of webinars on working and getting SSI and how working affects SSDI. So if your loved one is working and you want to make sure that you don't mess up their benefits, you might want to watch those webinars. The other thing that I would like to mention to you, that there is a such thing as free benefit counseling. You can go on the Social Security Administration's website and type in benefit counseling. So if you're wondering how work might impact benefits or what, impacts what, you can get free benefit counseling, and they'll have them in your area. I don't care where you are in the US, there is free benefit counseling. You don't have to hire somebody to give you benefit counseling. Benefit counseling is, how do I maintain SSI in work? How do I maintain SSDI in work? How do I maintain Medicare or Medicaid? What are the 5 phases of work when it comes to the Social Security Administration? So they'll go over all of those things with you. So guys, it has certainly been my pleasure to be here with you today. Check your email for the letter of intent and the slides that we're sending out. And if we can be of assistance to you, let us know. You can hover over this QR code and schedule your free consultation with us. You'll probably hear from our staff just following up to see if you had any questions following the webinar, and if you wanted to schedule a free personalized consultation. Our staff here is awesome. So just be courteous to our staff if they reach out to you, and we'll look forward to working with you in the future. Thanks for stopping by today. Thanks for being here, and we will catch up with you on our next webinar. Thank you, Kara and the Williams School, for being here and for what you're doing for the special needs community. We love what you're doing, so thank you for that. All right, take care, everyone, and have a great afternoon.